Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. Good evening. Welcome to Shalom Assembly live broadcast tonight on Erev Shabbat. Erev being dark, so the dark part of the Shabbat. Dark part of the Sabbath, the beginning of the Sabbath here at sunset or shortly thereafter. It is 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 o'clock Central Time, and we're opening the Sabbath right now with a prayer. Good evening, Father Yahweh. We do thank you for the week that we had. You blessed us with work. You blessed us with things to do. We pray that we were obedient and laboring for the 6 days that you gave us to labor and preparing for this. This is your Shabbat. This is the day that you gave us to rest, and we thank you for giving us a rest. And of course, we begin this rest at evening, lying down, and then when we wake tomorrow, we have a day of rest. And we enjoy it. And we thank you. But as we open this study, please send your Spirit among us. Teach us your ways and help us to better understand your word. We ask this in Yahshua's name. And anything we ask in Yahshua's name has already been granted. So we say, Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right, so thank you for all for joining us. Welcome to Shalom Assembly Live broadcast again. And here we are. Tonight, we will be discussing like a child. We were discussing what it means to be like a child. Let's open our discussion here with Mark, chapter 10 and verse 13. So Mark chapter 10, verse 13. And we read here the words Yahshua is speaking. He said, right now, they in Mark chapter 10, verse 13, and they were bringing a little child for him to, start this over. And they were bringing little children for him to touch them, but the taught ones, the ones who were taught by Yahshua, the ones following Yahshua, some versions of the Bible say disciples, taught ones, discipline, teaching, disciples, taught ones. So the ones Yahshua was teaching, the ones following Yahshua, predominantly the 12, but also the others who were following. And so they had pride, and they were bringing little children from the touch, but the taught ones were rebuking those who were teaching them. And when Yahshua saw it, he was much displeased. And he said to them, "Let the little children come to me, and do not forbid them, for of such is the reign of Elohim, the kingdom of Elohim. May our king reign, but of such is the reign of Elohim." And then he adds this, "Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the reign of Elohim as a little child shall certainly not enter into it." And then taking them up in his arms and laying his hands on them, he blessed them. So those are harsh words. He said we must become like a child if we're going to enter into the reign of the kingdom of the Elohim, kingdom of Yahweh, kingdom of Elohim, the kingdom. When the New Jerusalem comes down, worldwide peace, no more struggles, no more tears. Yes, world peace, the fulfillment of all prophecy. Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Emmanuel, El with us. All the prophecies being fulfilled. It's going to be a great and glorious day of Yahweh, if you will, 1,000 years, the millennium reign, eternity, if you will. Eternity. For eternity, we're going to be able to spend eternity with the Creator, with the Almighty, with Yahweh. Greatness, right? But Yahshua just said, if we don't become as a child, if we don't enter in to receive it as a child would receive it, we're not coming in. Harsh words. So we're going to study about what it means to be like a child. We're going to study, a child is obedient, a child is trusting, a child is forgiving, and a child is dependent. Those are 4 things. There are many other things a child is, but the 4 we've narrowed it down to tonight is trusting, obedient, well, in order, obedient, trusting, forgiving, and dependent. So that's what we're looking at tonight, is these 4 aspects of a child, and how can we implement these aspects into our life, and how can we become more like a child so that we can enter into the kingdom. That's what we want to do, and that's what we're going to do, according to Yahweh's promise. And so the Spirit will guide us, and the Spirit will correct us and move us along. But as the Spirit guides us and moves along, it's good to study which way the Spirit is trying to move us. So we're going to study obedient, we're going to study trusting, we're going to study forgiving, and we're going to study dependent. These are 4 things that a child is. These are 4 things that we were when we were children of our earthly parents. These are 4 things that we should be as children of our Heavenly Father. So let's get started here. Obedient. Alright, so some children only learn obedience through discipline, through teaching, through punishment. But, yeah, we do learn obedience. And obedience is, for the most part, even children are obedient without being punished, for the most part. There are times when they need corrected, but we're as children, we should be obedient, and we are taught to be obedient to our parents. And for the most part, children are obedient. You ask a child, come here, and you ask a child what you have authority over. You're a parent or a uncle or an aunt or just an elder in the assembly, and the child's being unruly. You say, come here, and you say, be quiet. They quiet down. They're eager to please. They're obedient. It's not like they're trying to be unruly. So you just speak to them softly and give them direction. They follow the directions quite well. They are obedient, and that's how we should be, as obedient. We go to 1 Samuel 15, verse 22, and we will study what it means to be obedient, how we can be obedient, and etc. So, 1 Samuel 15, verse 22. The background on what was going on here in 1 Samuel 15, Saul was told to completely annihilate the Amalekites. Fight against them until they are completely consumed. All the cattle, all the men, all the children, all the women, all their gold, all their silver, everything. Completely destroy everything. Don't take anything for you. Don't use any of it. Completely destroy it and get it away. For they were harsh to the children of Israel. They always have been harsh to the children of Israel. They came against the children of Israel when Aharon died. They said, okay, now we can take them, and they didn't. And then they came against the children of Israel again during the time of the judges. And one of the judges rose up and said, look, for these 400 years, or maybe there's a saying, who knows whether it was 400 years or whether it's not, but that's not the issue. The issue is that one of the judges came up and said, look, you've never had dispute until now. Why? And this is what happened. You came against us, you were defeated, we took your land, and so it was. And we only took the 2 kings that came against us. We didn't take all of you. We left your land alone, speaking to the descendant of the king, that they left alone, and now he's coming up against them, and for no reason. That happened during the time of judges. Now, again, here during the time of the kings, it's going to happen again. And Yahweh says, go, take him. Take him out. And so it was. Saul goes against them and takes them out. But what happened? Saul did not take them completely out. He wasn't obedient, was he? He kept the best booty for himself and all this. And sure. And Saul said to Samuel, I did obey the voice of Yahweh. We're in verse 20. And I went on the way which Yahweh sent me, and I brought back Agag, sovereign of Amalek, and I put Amalek under the ban. If you put Amalek under the ban, he would not have brought back Agag, sovereign of Amalek. Agag, son of Amalek, would be dead. But the people took the spoil of the sheep and the cattle. The people weren't obedient. He's supposed to be their king. Make them obey. The best of that which would have been put under the ban, he said, put everything under the ban, to slaughter the Yahweh your Elohim in Gilgal. Then Shemuel said, does Yahweh delight in burnt offerings and slaughterings, as in the obeying the voice of Yahweh? Look, to obey is better than an offering. To heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as wickedness and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he also does reject you as sovereign. And Shaul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have greatly transgressed the command of Yahweh and your words, because I feared the people and listened to their voice. And as Samuel turned to walk away, Saul seized his robe and tore it, and Samuel said to him, Yahweh has torn the reign of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours better than you. So we see that there is punishment for disobedience. There is punishment and we should be obedient to the letter, exactly as it was spoken, not trying to twist and turn, not trying to ask why, just do as we are told. And it will work out better for us if we are, and that's it. We don't need to have any explanation of how to be obedient. But let's look to another reason for to be obedient is Devarim 28, 1 through 12. 1 through 2. So let's go to Devarim. Devarim, if you will, Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 12. 1 through 2. I wrote down 12 here, I think. Or I'm just looking at the 1 and the 2 and putting them together. But anyway, just going to read two verses, 1 and 2. Deuteronomy 28, 1. And it shall be, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh Elohim, to guard to do all his commands, which I command you today, that Yahweh your Elohim. And it shall be, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard to do all his commands which I command you today, that Yahweh your Elohim shall set you high above all nations of the earth, and these blessings, all these blessings, shall come upon you and overtake you, if you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. And as we get further on to the study, we'll discover that the reason why these blessings will come upon us is because these are instructions for blessings. And if we obey the instructions for blessings, we get blessings. If we obey the instructions for life, for prosperity, we get life and prosperity. Yahweh, our Creator, has given us these and to keep us alive, so we don't experience a curse, so we don't experience pain, so we don't experience suffering. He's given us these instructions to keep us away from the curse. So this is why we want to obey, because he says if you obey, then you're going to get set high above all the other nations of the earth. That's what these instructions are for. That's what these instructions do. And that's what obedience brings. It doesn't bring us a right to be in the kingdom. It doesn't bring us brownie points or a higher rank when we get into the kingdom. It has nothing to do with the eternity. It has everything to do with right here, right now. We're going to be set high above the other nations of the earth. We're going to be prosperous. We're going to be healthy. We're going to be wealthy. We're going to be wise. If we obey. So that's a good reason to obey. And Devarim 4, 5 through 9 will lead us into the second part of our discussion here on obedience. Still on obedience, but Devarim 4, 5 through 9. No, not Devarim. I'm sorry. It's Shemot 4, 5 through 9. got the wrong one here. There we go. Wrong button. Okay. Deuteronomy 4, 5, and 9. 5 through 9. See, I have taught you laws and right rulings as Yahweh, my Elohim, commanded me, to do thus in the land which you go to possess. And you shall guard and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding before the eyes of the people who hear these laws. And they shall say, only a wise and understanding people is this great nation. For what great nation is there which has an Elohim so near to it as Yahweh, our Elohim, is to us, whenever we call on him? And what great nation is there that has such laws and righteous right rulings as all this Torah, which I set before you this day? Only guard yourself and guard your life diligently, lest you forget the words of your eye, lest you forget the words your eyes have seen, and lest they turn aside from your heart all the days of your life, and you shall make them known to your children and your grandchildren. So, blessings. This is, and the nations will look and say, wow, Yahweh is awesome, when they look upon us being obedient. Good examples of that. Suppose you're a child. Again, we have to become like a child. So children, when they have friends, they like to sleep over at a friend's house. Can I sleep over at my friend's house? Yes, okay, go ahead. But now, when they're at their friend's house, the child will come and say, the bedtime at the at the friend's house is 8 o'clock. Bedtime at my house is 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. But obedience. The child is obedient at the friend's house. And we're getting to a point here. It's going to be a hard point, but it's going to be a point that we need to make. A child, when they go to their friend's house, they don't say, well, at my house, I don't have to go to bed till that time. No, they do what they're told to do at that house. Provided, of course, that their friend is going, if their friend is obedient, they will follow the lead of their friend and be obedient. If their friend is not obedient, then what motivation do they have to be obedient to parents that aren't even theirs? But suppose their friend is obedient, and their friend does what their friend's parents say to do, then this child coming over and visiting the friend for the night will follow suit and do as he's told to do without any question, without any argument, saying, that's not the way we do it at my house. That's not you're not at your house. You're at this house. And at this house you obey the rules of this house. So that works both ways. If we're going to be in the kingdom, we're going to obey the rules of the kingdom. And we understand that Yahweh is the lawgiver, and Yahweh's laws are just and right, and Yahweh is awesome, and we do what Yahweh says. But are we in Yahweh's kingdom right now, or are we sojourning someplace else? So the speed limit signs. It says speed limit 55 miles per hour. Oh, I can go 60 and get away with it. Or oh, I'm in a hurry. I didn't prepare. I didn't leave for work at the proper time. I didn't give myself enough time, so I'm gonna go 80. I got to get to work on time. If we cannot obey the lawgiver that they can see, how do we expect them? How can we draw them closer to Yahweh? How can we draw them closer to a lawgiver that they cannot see, when we can't even obey a lawgiver that they can see? They see us being disobedient to a meaningless law. It has meaning. It has good intentions. They figure that if you go this speed, you're going to be less likely to cause any injury, to cause an accident. So maybe there are some engineering work involved, and there is some logic behind the law, but maybe there's not. But it does not matter if it's a good law or a bad law. It's not against Yahweh's law. They're not telling us that you must go to work on Saturday. They're not telling us you must bow down to this idol. They're telling us, slow down. This is the highway that we built we constructed this highway, and there's other cars on this highway, there's other hazards on this highway, and we don't want you going over 55 miles per hour. If you choose to disobey that one, and people see you disobeying, then how can you draw them closer to Yahweh when you yourself are not even obedient to a law that they can see? It's very important. So if we cannot obey the lawgiver that they can see, how do we expect them to draw close to the lawgiver that they cannot see? When I was a manager at Burger King, sometimes my store supervisor, sometimes the even higher than that district manager would give me an instruction which I did not follow, which I did not think was a good idea. But if they gave me that instruction right in front of my crew, I'm going to go carry it out, whether I agree with it or not, because for the sake of my crew. I want my crew to do what I tell them to do. My crew has to see me doing what I'm told to do. Same way, if we're going to minister to other people and say, well, Yahweh's law is good, Yahweh's law is just, and we need to obey Yahweh's law, and we need to follow Yahweh, and then they see us breaking a speed limit law, and they see us speaking of bad things, using, subject matter which should not be discussed, using foul language as it is. And we're not talking about chickens. We're talking about, what we're talking about. Things that shouldn't be talked about. And we're not going to talk about the things that shouldn't be talked about because they shouldn't be talked about. No matter what word we want to use, it doesn't matter. It's the subject matter. We shouldn't be discussing such disgusting things. And that's the issue. It doesn't matter what word we substitute in there, whether we use this word or that word. The reason why that word is bad is because it's things that should not be mentioned. It's things that should not be talked about. That's why it's a bad word. If they see us using bad words, they see us breaking speed limits, we are not being an example that they can follow. And we need to be obedient to the law here as we are sojourners here. So we need to live here and be peaceful and be respected here. Phase 2. Alright. We had enough about obedience. We be obedience up for a while. But trusting. That's probably even better than obedient. Trusting. Do we trust Yahweh? A child trusts his parents, right? When you put your child in the back seat of the car and buckle him up and get in and start driving, you don't say, are you sure you know how to drive this thing? Are you sure you know where you're going? Do you know what you're doing? Am I going to get in an accident? Children don't distrust their parents. You trust that your dad knows how to drive the car. You trust that your dad knows how to make the hamburgers on the grill perfectly. You trust that he knows how to cook. You trust your father, you trust your mother. Children know how to trust. A child does not question his parents, and neither should we. A good example of that is Sabbath. So you go to Shalom 20, verses 8 through 14. Exodus, if you will, 20, verses 8 through 14. And we see here the instruction. It says, remember the Sabbath day to set it apart. 6 days you labor and shall do your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath to Yahweh. The seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh, your Elohim. You do not do any work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. There are, for 6 days, Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the seventh day and set it apart. The seventh day of the week. When I was in door-to-door sales, when I was a street vendor, out merchandising on the streets, if I were to work on the seventh day, I could make 3 times. I could sell out within an hour if I wanted to. And back in those days when I was doing that, I was not fully obedient, and I got caught up into that mess. And I could sell out within an hour. Usually it took me 8 hours, I could get done in 1 hour. Busiest day of the week. But do we trust Yahweh on this and say, okay, I'm not going to go out to the market on this busiest day of the week when I can make a killing. I trust you. You said this is the day you want me to rest. I'm resting. I trust you. I'll work on my 6 days that you give me to work, and I'm going to set aside the 7th day and not work. The 7th day, the busiest day of the week. If we trust him, we obey him. And we do it. If we trust him, if he knows. Do we trust that Yahweh knows? Let's go to Leviticus 11, verses 1 through 47. We're probably going to read the first 8 verses. But the entire chapter is about one thing. These you eat, these you don't eat. Do we trust him? And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, These are the living creatures which you do eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Goes on to describe whatever has a split hoof completely divided, chewing the cud among the beasts that you eat. Then he said there are some that chew the cud, but do not have a split hoof, and there are some that have a completely divided hoof, but they just swallow their meat down whole, and you don't eat them. Then it goes on about the fish. The ones that have fins and scales are good. The ones that don't are not good. And then there are certain birds of the air that have special markings. They have you can see a pelican's beak the way it is. You can see the web feet on a duck. Didn't say web feet on a duck, did it? But there are mentioned one that had web feet. It had, and then we have it all the way through. It mentions certain kinds of birds. You don't eat bats. You don't eat the kites. You don't eat hawks. You don't eat falcons. Black vulture. Even the ravens. The owls. The white owls. The little owls. The fisher owls. The stork. The heron. The hoopoe. So your stork and your heron have special features which swans also have, and ducks also have. And the pelican, yeah, and you get the point. And it gives a description of insects that you can't eat. They have the hinge leg, which they can jump. Those are good. The ones that walk on all fours, the ones that walk on 6 legs, the ones that walk on 1,000,000 legs, the millipede, the centipede, no good. Don't eat them. But do we trust him? Does he know? Does he care? Does he love us? Does he know everything? Is he the creator and we are the created? Is he all infinite in wisdom, infinite in knowledge, and infinite in love? And if he is, and we trust him, and we believe that he is, then we will follow him. And when I was just the other day, they're closing down at Kroger. They're taking out the seating area, the cafe seating area, where you can order something at the deli and then go sit down and eat it right there at the store while your wife is shopping. Gives the men something to do to make them feel important, so they don't get bored and rush the wife and make the wife forget something. So the wife can be free to shop and make more and spend more money while he is not paying attention. Well, we had that seating area, and we're going to close that down because it's the future. Now people want to click, people want to click on their computers and order on the computers, and so that's what we're going to do. You order on the computer, drive to the store, pick it up. Actually, some of the locations are even going to deliver to your house. But our location, you're going to have to drive to the store and pick it up, and they're installing that area, and they're going to take the cafe seating area out. So all this stuff is going to get wasted or thrown into a warehouse if we don't use it. So I took the microwave and put it into the break room. So now we have 2 microwaves. It'll be easier for those people who use such things to be able to be more efficient instead of having to wait for one person. If somebody else is using one, they can have the other. It was a good idea, and so I did it. Then my manager calls me up and says, "Hey, where's the microwave? It's supposed to be over here. We need to have this over here for all weekend." And trusting the manager. I trust the manager who asked me to do this. So I didn't even question why or how or when. I just jumped right on it as soon as possible, put the microwave back. He then explained to me that we're going to have strawberries, chocolate-covered strawberries for this, I guess, sweetest day or whatever. They always have to have their own holidays because they don't believe in Yahweh's holidays, so they got to make them, and that's fine. And it's good marketing, and they make money. I guess it makes everybody happy. We get to spend our money, and they get to take our money, and then we complain later they got the money and we don't. And, yeah. But still. So, after I did it, he explained why. But there's many times, even as a child, see, we have to be careful what kind of a child we become like, because we don't want to be the child that says, why? When Dad says, do it, we do it. And then Dad will tell us why later. Why? We don't want to do that. We don't want to ask why. That's one thing we don't want to be as a child, is asking why. But if we trust that Dad knows best, Father knows best, we won't ask why. Usually we're asking why because we're going to formulate an argument of why we're not going to do it. We don't trust that Dad knows best, or we're not going to be obedient. Going back to the obedience and following through the trust. If we don't trust Yahweh, if we're not willing to be obedient to Yahweh, then we say why, and then we try to make formulations around it. And even with the creatures that we do not eat, he says these do not eat. And we studied the word unclean during Torah school in language arts class, and we found that word to be like a disgusting pond. You know, lagoons where they have in the country, and they have this ditch where they pump all the wastewater out of their house into that ditch. Yeah, that's what unclean is. So when next time somebody puts a nice pork chop right in front of you, you think of that dirty, disgusting pond, and you'll be able to be obedient a lot faster. That's what that is. Yahweh says it's unclean. That's what unclean is. Breaking down the word into the pictographs. It's not a pretty sight. Not anything anyone wants to come close to. The stench of that would be even atrocious. But that's if we trust Yahweh and He says it's unclean, we just it's unclean. I'm not going to eat it. If we try to formulate why, because it's a scavenger. It's got cholesterol. Because we used to feed it slop. Now we're going to feed it corn. Now we have refrigeration. No. We reason about why, usually when we want to be disobedient or when we don't trust. Why are you telling me to do this? Because we don't trust Him. We need to have trust. But as I demonstrated with the manager at Kroger, it's much easier to be meek, to be humble, and to follow under the lead if you trust your leader. And if we trust Yahweh, if we believe Yahweh has our best interest at heart and we trust Him that He knows, then when He says don't do it, we don't. And when He says do it, we do, because we trust Him. As a child trusts his parents. A child doesn't question, do you know how to drive that car? No. A child doesn't question when his dad is taking him someplace by the hand. Dad knows best. Okay, I want to stay close to Dad. When I was at the feast, David from Indiana told a story about a child who had, I guess, the grass was tall and he got lost in the grass, and then those dogs in the grass would come and get him, and but he held on to his dad's belt loop, and he felt secure, and he trusted his dad would take him through it. Hold on to Daddy's hand. We trust him. And we follow where he goes. Because he knows. And we know that he knows. And we trust him. Alright, forgiveness. Forgiving. Part 3. Almost through this. Because there's not much we can say about forgiving. We all know we must be forgiving. Yahshua has mentioned it many times. If you cannot forgive, neither will you be forgiven. If you come before Yahweh with petition, you realize you got something against your brother, first go back and forgive him before you come to Yahweh with petition. Constantly talking about you must forgive. So that's what a child is, and a child is forgiving. If you ever watch two children, if you ever raised children, you can see when one child takes another's toy, there's a fuss about it for a while. But then, even when you intervene, you say, apologize, okay, and they're playing together nicely again. Even if you don't intervene, eventually they're going to get solved. 20, 30 minutes later, they're playing together as if nothing happened. Children are forgiving. Children don't hold grudges. Children don't do this. And if we're going to be a child, and we're going to enter into Yahweh's kingdom, we will be forgiving. But how does the children not forget? How does the children forgive so easily? Well, I think they value the friendship more than they value whatever the child. If somebody did something wrong, they value the relationship more than they value whatever the wrong was. If we have pride issues, if we have other issues, if we're attached to an object so much that we are going to put our priorities out of order, then we're going to hold on to the wrong. It's going to cause a root of bitterness, and it's something we don't want to do. I've given this example many times. Let's look at some scripture here. Matthew 18, 21 through 22. Then we'll go into my example, which I've given many times. Matthew 18, 21 through 22. Alright, Matthew. Then Kepha came to him and said, Master, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? And Kepha was thinking, wow, that's a lot. I'll forgive him 7 times. And Yahshua said to him, I did not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. And a favorite saying of mine is, I forgive you 1 time. And people who don't understand say, well, you're supposed to forgive more, up to 7 times 70. But I'm not keeping track. I forgive you 1 time. If you were to repeat the mistake, I would say I forgive you 1 time. And then if you said, well, I thought you said you were going to forgive me 1 time last time. It's like, oh, there was a last time? Then you should have remembered that. Let's do a study on repentance. Yeah, do not continue to wrong me. Don't do it again. It's over. It's done. You're forgiven. Now go and don't do it again. Do it again? Oh, I forgive you 1 time. Not the 3rd time? You're keeping count. If you can remember that you wronged me, then quit wronging me. But yeah, it's over. Forget it. It's done. I forgive you 1 time. Yeah. So yeah, when we forgive, we put it away. We put it aside. It's not for us to continue to remember it. It's for them to continue to remember it, so they won't repeat it. If we wrong somebody, it's for us to continue to remember and learn from that mistake, so the mistake doesn't get done again. So we can formulate a plan of repentance, so that we can make sure it never happens again. But we don't hold ourselves accountable. After he got done telling the story, he went ahead. He told the story about a man who was owed his master a great debt, and then the master, after pleading, said it's forgiven. But then he held on to that, and he remembered that he owes that great debt. Even after it's been forgiven, he holds himself accountable, and he goes to the person who owes him money. It can't happen. If you cannot forgive, then neither will you be forgiven. If you've been forgiven, now you owe nothing. Then the person who owes you money, it's not important because you don't owe anybody money anyway. So why even bother going after that money? You don't owe your master any money. He's forgiven it. So let go of it. If he's let go of what you've done wrong, then you can let go of whatever the other person's done wrong because you owe nothing. You owe Yahweh nothing. And neither does the other person owe Yahweh anything. He doesn't owe you anything. It's debt-free. It's been forgiven. What do you have to eat? If I had an example here, I'd bring a person on stage with me right here and say, why did you eat last year at this time? And I don't know. Yeah, see how easy it is to forget? When it's not important, you can forget. Of course, last time I did this, when I was giving a message on forgiveness at the feast, I brought a youth up there on stage, and he has to say, oh yeah, I was eating this. I remember that because, and yeah, he was playing. Here's a feast. We can have fun. But yeah, he didn't really remember. You don't remember things like that. You shouldn't remember the person who owes you $1,000 either. It's forgotten. It's gone. You've forgiven it, right? Whether he repents, whether he apologizes or not, we still forgive. We don't hold anything against our brother, right? If we remember that we have something against our brother, we go and forgive him. Without him asking for forgiveness, whether he's willing to repent or not, whether he's willing to make up for it or not, it doesn't matter. He's forgiven. I'm forgiven. You're forgiven. You are forgiven without any qualifications. You don't have to apologize to me. You don't have to be sorry. You don't have to pay me back. You don't have to make retribution. You're forgiven. It's over. It's done. All debts are paid. My debts have been paid, and so have yours. Justified, just if I did not do it. Just if you did not do it. It's gone. Forgiveness. And it's so easy to forget about something when it's not important. So don't make it important. Nothing on this world is important. The only thing that's important is the kingdom. If we want to be in the kingdom, we got to be like a child. That child 20 minutes later is playing with the guy who hit him. He's playing with the guy who sprayed mud in his face. He's playing with the guy who stole his toy. He's playing with the guy who broke his toy. 20 minutes later, it's over. It's over. It's done. Kingdom's the only thing that's important. Nothing in this world is important. It doesn't matter what they called us, what they did to us, what they did to our children, what they did to our wife. It doesn't matter what they said, what they did, what they took, who they killed, who they raped. It doesn't matter. It's over. It's done. It's forgiven. Very difficult. But if it's not important, you can forget. And if you can forget, you can forgive. And if you can forgive, you can be forgiven. If you can forgive like a child can forgive, 20 minutes later, no matter what wrong was, it's over. It's done. It's forgotten. We're playing together again as if it never happened. You can be in the kingdom. I think we want to be in the kingdom. So, yeah. The Spirit helps us where we fall short. Because that's a big one. It's hard to forgive sometimes. But it's very important. And makes our life so much more fun. Anyway, finally, dependent. Children are very dependent on their parents, are they not? Especially as an infant. You have to do it. The parent has to even change the garments for them, has to feed them. Then they grow up and they become a little bit less dependent. But children are very dependent. They can't go out and they can't gather their own food. Well, some of them can, but not completely. And they can't prepare it. They can't build their own house, definitely. They can't own the property to build their own house on. They need their parents to provide their house, shelter, protection, definitely protection. If a child gets injured, right here, it says if an injured child will run to his parents knowing that they can make it all better. And how many times do children run to their parents knowing that they can make it all better? Get cut? Hey mommy, hey daddy, I got cut. And daddy goes and gets the peroxide and the iodine and the alcohol and the neosporin and all these chemicals and cleans it up real good and it's painful putting these chemicals in there to clean it up, and then he puts a Band-Aid on it. Mommy kisses it and it's all better. All you want is to know that your parents have made it all better. But yeah. And you know, and you trust that your parents can make it better, and so that goes with trusting as well, but it's dependent. We can't fix it ourselves, especially if there's a broken bone involved. We can't fix it ourselves, but our parents can. Or our parents can take us to someone who can, and we're dependent, and we trust. In Psalm 147, verse 3, it says here, Yahweh Rapha. Alright, Psalm 147, verse 3. He heals the broken-hearted and binds up their wounds. He appoints the number of the stars and gives names to all of them. But yeah, he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Yahweh can heal us as our Father in heaven. As our Father on earth can heal us when we get a cut, when we get a broken bone. Actually, Yahweh, our Father in heaven, is the one that heals us when we get a broken bone anyway. And there are some people who know how to protect that bone so it can heal faster. But Yahweh is the one that provides the healing, and He provided He made our bodies perfect so that they will be healed. But yeah, we trust, we obey, and we're dependent, right? We depend on Yahweh for everything. Even the children of Israel. Back in Exodus, Shemot, if you will, 15:26. Shemot 15:26. For 40 years. Alright, so Exodus, Shemot 15:26. I'm going to have to turn there myself because the computer isn't cooperating with me. So yeah. We all know what it says. And if we don't, we'll read it right here for the first time. And he said, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, and do what is right in his eyes, and shall listen to his commands, and shall guard his laws, I shall bring on you none of the diseases I brought on the Mitzrites, for I am Yahweh who heals you. And then we go to 1635, and we learn about the 40 years in the wilderness when they walked, and their clothes didn't even wear out. Their shoes didn't wear out. Let's go here. This is fun. This is Yahweh. We can trust, but we are dependent on Him. And the children of Israel were very dependent upon Him. 1635. And Yahweh and the children of Israel ate manna for 40 years until they came to the inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the dry land, until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. Nehemiah 9:20. I think we're getting the point here. We can depend on Yahweh. The children of Israel depended on them. As children, when we were younger, especially infants and toddlers, we depended on our parents on earth. And we must become dependent, not independent, but dependent. We must submit to Yahweh and ask Him for everything, and let Him provide everything, even if we think we can provide it for ourselves. We can't. We let Him provide for us, and we trust in His provision. Again, back to the Sabbath. We trust in His provision. He will provide for us. I don't need to go out and work on the Sabbath because He told me to rest on the Sabbath. So Nehemiah 9:20 says, you also gave good spirit to instruct them, did not withhold your manna from their mouth, and gave them water for their thirst. And for 40 years you sustained them in the wilderness. they lacked not. Their garments did not wear out, and their feet did not swell. And you gave them reigns and peoples, and apportioned them their lot. So they took possession of the land of Sihon, and the land of the sovereign of Heshbon, and the land of Og, and the sovereign of Bashan. Yahweh provides. And we will be dependent on Yahweh to provide for us, instead of depending upon ourselves. And that puts the Sabbath back into perspective. We don't need to work on the Sabbath day. Yahweh provides. And we depend on Yahweh for His provision. That doesn't mean that we should be lazy and not slothful, because it says 6 days shall you work and do all your labor. And if we're in a situation where we're laboring for somebody else, we definitely want to serve Yahweh by being a good servant to that other person. And we can draw the other company, the other people who we work for, to closer to Yahweh through our diligently hard-working service. That's not the issue. That's not. They give us a measly small paycheck, and that small paycheck might buy some things, but we depend on Yahweh. We pray for Yahweh. Hey, Yahweh, please put food on this table. And when He does, thank you, Father Yahweh, for providing for us. We depend on Him for everything. As a child depends on his parents for everything, that's how we must become. Dependent on Yahweh. Forget this, I've got money, I can buy it myself. No, Yahweh, will you please give it to me? And Yahweh will give you. What parent gives a son a stone when he needs bread? Yahweh will take care of you. You got to depend on Him. As we learn to be dependent upon Yahweh, it helps us be obedient. If we trust Yahweh will provide, then being dependent upon Yahweh is not going to be a difficult thing. So there we have it. We studied obedience, we studied trusting, we studied forgiving, and we studied dependence. There's 4 things that a child is, that we must be as a child if we're going to see the kingdom of Yahweh. Forgiving is hard. Trusting is easy if we just do it. Obedience is easy if we trust. Dependent is very hard, is it not? For us adults who can take care of ourselves to be dependent upon somebody else. So that's where we must be. Every step of the way. Yahweh, please provide. Yahweh, please fix this. Yahweh, please. Yahweh, always. Pray without ceasing, as Paul says. We need. If we have a need, ask and it shall be given to you. All we need to do is ask Yahweh instead of going out to rob a bank. We don't need to, or instead of working on the Sabbath. We don't need to provide that for ourselves. Yahweh will give it to us if we need it. He gives good things to us if we ask. Of course, we can go into the other aspect of asking out of greed, but we don't need to right now. We've covered that before. Right now, we're going into dependence. Not independence, not providing for ourselves, but letting Yahweh provide for us. In the children of Israel, when they were in the wilderness, the manna was given to them. Their clothes did not wear out. Their feet did not swell even though they're walking constantly. Yahweh will take care of us the same way, and we will depend on Yahweh. As a child depends on his parents. That's what Yahweh wants from us. That's what Yahweh desires from us. Yahweh does not desire for us to go out and provide for ourselves. He desires for us to depend on Him, to trust Him, to ask Him so that He can give to us. Some of you guys still celebrate birthdays. I don't. But I know back when I was disobedient, before I learned even, when I was giving a gift, it made me feel important. It made me feel closer to the person I'm giving a gift to. Yahweh wants to give you everything. Depend on Yahweh for everything and let Yahweh provide for you, even when you think you can provide for yourself. This is how we must be. Dependent, obedient, trusting, and definitely forgiving. Not easy? That's why Yahweh gave us the Spirit, to make things easy. Alright. With that, we say Shalom. Dear Heavenly Father Yahweh, we thank you for allowing us to study your word. We thank you for giving us a Sabbath day of rest. And as obedient children, we will rest. We will abide in you. We will worship you. We will study your word. We will sing praises to you. We will fellowship with your fellow people, with other believers, and we'll just bask and enjoy the day of rest. Instead of going out and thinking that we have to provide for ourselves, we'll be dependent upon you, and we'll trust that you will provide for us. And we'll just enjoy this day off that you gave us. Thank you for letting us study your word. Thank you for giving us your word. Thank you for your right rulings. In all things, we give you praise and say hallelujah. So, in Yahshua's name we say hallelujah, and with that, may you enjoy the rest of the Sabbath.